Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. International News Review.
Here with our international newsroom, Steve Oken, the CEO of APEC Advisors, and our resident KOL.
Well, not only a KOL, but if you'll recall, a few years ago, the governor of Kentucky bestowed upon me the recognition and title of Colonel. So I am a COL and a KOL.
You're a colonel.
Yes, I'm a Kentucky colonel. I have been bestowed that title by the governor of Kentucky.
Wait, was this Colonel Sanders? Was this a Kentucky Fried Chicken thing?
Mean? You can make chicken? What does it mean?
When you do a service to the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, the governor can recognize you and bestow upon you the title of colonel. Like you one day, maybe, Neil, will be Sir Neil Humphreys.
Not, but yeah.
Well, I am Colonel Steve Oken. Thank you
so
very
wait,
much.
Do we have to drink mint juleps or something here? And do you have to affect a Southern accent?
I stick with the bourbon.
And what was the context for this?
Context was so the Secretary of State of Kentucky was coming to Asia to try and promote trade and investment between Kentucky and in Asia. And so my friend called me up and said, can you help the Secretary of State on her mission? She's going to be in Taiwan. I go, actually, I'm going to be in Taiwan when she's there. So I set up all these meetings for the Secretary of State. And literally like 3 weeks later, I get this beautiful certificate that bestows upon me the title Colonel, Kentucky Colonel. So I am a COL and a KOL.
I don't even know where to go with that.
There's a kernel of truth in there somewhere.
Can we just end the segment now? I feel like that's where we should.
Colonel
it's
Sanders.
not going to get any better than that.
No, we've got Colonel Sanders in the room.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yeah, go make your KFC. Yeah.
All right. Sadly, we have to go from something that is actually very fun to talk about to something that is not fun at all to talk about. But we got to talk about Ukraine, folks. Ever since Trump met Putin at the White House, everyone's been blowing up over this. Seems like Trump made a deal that, the European Union and, of course, Ukraine didn't really have any dealing with. And now the EU, the European Union, is warning against pushing Ukraine to give up territory, as is believed is part of the deal that Trump and Putin talked about. Steve, what do we know about this ongoing and very complicated situation that we've got?
Well, we certainly now know the motive for why Trump is doing what he's doing. He said in an interview, and I quote verbatim, "I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I am really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons."
Is this a real quote?
Yes. President Trump said that in an interview. I believe it was with Sean Hannity on Fox. I believe it was. I'll check it. But yeah, that is what he said. That is why Trump is doing this to get to heaven. So that is what his aim is.
So he's got that going for him.
He said it. I'm correct myself. He said it on Fox and Friends, not to Sean Hannity. And so that is that. We now know his motive. And he also said, which was caught on a hot mic. He said this to President Macron on Monday. He said, "I think Putin, wants to make a deal for me. You understand, as crazy as it sounds." It is as crazy as it sounds. Putin does not want to do a deal. Everything that Trump came away with, what he thought Putin said to him in Anchorage, turned out not to be true. And arguably, we are worse off now in Ukraine than we were before Trump met with Putin in Anchorage.
Well, yeah, if we can return to planet Earth for a second. There has been, since that meeting, significant air attacks by Russia on Thursday across the region. Ukraine has consistently conceded Donbass, which apparently is part of this deal. And then from the EU standpoint, I'm going to say there are echoes of the 1930s here. Once you start conceding illegally occupied land to a convicted warlord, dictator, call it whatever you like, it's not going to end well. This is why the EU are so concerned, Steve.
But it's even a step further back than the land swaps and the land concessions.
Not land swaps, land takes.
Land takes, yeah. Because the contradiction here is that and this is what the miscommunication apparently between Putin and Trump was in Anchorage. This has to come down to security guarantees for Ukraine. The land is secondary. First, Ukraine needs to know that it can survive as a sovereign country, secure in whatever borders it comes out with after this. And the contradiction is that Russia would need to make a deal recognizing these security guarantees, but Russia, and Putin in particular, doesn't believe Ukraine exists as a legitimate state.
That therein is the rub, right? Yeah.
It's part of Mother Russia.
So how can Putin, if Putin believes, as you just said, Neil, that Ukraine is part of Mother Russia, then he is not going to give any security guarantees to an illegitimate country. And what Putin apparently has offered is that, yes, the U.S. and the European nations can give a security guarantee to Ukraine, but Russia can veto any guarantee, which means there's no
which
guarantee.
Means there's no guarantee. Yeah.
So what's happening now? Which I said up front, it's getting worse. You're seeing more bombings of civilians. You're seeing more bombings of infrastructure. You're seeing bombing now of a U.S. factory, in the western part of Ukraine. That's the first time the U.S. in a way was attacked directly in this. And what Russia's doing is playing for time, because Ukraine cannot go on as long as Russia can go on with the damage being inflicted by Russia onto Ukraine and by Russia onto itself.
This was extraordinary. There was a press conference in the White House on Friday, and one of the reporters brought up the fact that so Trump was showing a photo of he and Putin and was going to autograph it and said, wasn't this a great photo we took together? And which is kind of all bizarre to begin with. But then this reporter said, hey, how do you feel about Russia just bombing an American-owned factory in Ukraine after all you've just been through with him? He's like, oh well, yeah, that's a terrible thing, but look at this photograph. It's bizarre. It is absolutely bizarre.
Trump does not know what he is doing. He is being completely outclassed by Putin, and this is because it goes back to that Trump has gotten rid of anyone who knows anything about Russia has basically been eliminated from the United States government. He's basically eliminated the National Security Council. Anyone who was involved in, what Trump calls Russia, right? The investigation into 2016, back in 2016 of Russian interference in the U.S. election, they've all been purged out of the United States government. So you literally have this negotiation being run by Trump and being run by his, Stephen Witkoff, his real estate buddy from New York. They don't know what they're doing. They're making mistake after mistake, and this is where we are. And so you have this, what I would call a detrimental meeting from a Western perspective, U.S., EU, Ukraine, and everybody else who cares about rule of law. You have this awful meeting in Anchorage, which then the Europeans in masse come to Washington and get Trump back to some semblance of where we should be geopolitically. And so we're just stuck.
I mean, you may say that Trump has purged anyone with a view on Russia, but they can read a newspaper, surely, or see a website. Just this week, European leaders all collectively said Putin will not engage with a peace deal. That's number one. The Finnish president, and of course Finland has lots to be worried about because of their proximity to Russia, their president said Putin is rarely to be trusted. And worst of all, or most damning of all, the French president, Macron, said he's a predator, Putin is a predator, an ogre at our doorstep, and there will not be any peace. Why is no one in the White House listening to these words of warning and fear from EU leaders?
Because it's only one person who counts. And what does that one person in the White House think? And I'll go back to the quote I said at the top. Trump says, I think Putin wants to make a deal for me. You understand, as crazy as it sounds. That's what he believes.
So there's no one. There's no advisor in the West Wing. There's no one. There's no Russian expert, no geopolitical expert, no EU historical expert who can sit down with the president and say, this is why Putin will not concede.
They have all been purged or fired, whichever word you want to use. There are no Russian experts that we once had. They're all gone. They don't listen to them. This is the deep state. They don't know what they're doing. They're out against Trump, and they've gotten rid of all of them.
So the most bizarre quote of the week on social media on Thursday, Trump posted. He was criticized Joe Biden, quote, for not providing Ukraine with more weaponry that it needed to fight back. Now, if you can just get your head around what this is, first of all, Trump stopped aid to Ukraine this year, stopping the weapons, giving Russia a chance to really catch up on and do more damage. But, Biden administration sent billions of dollars of military aid and things. So Trump's now criticizing Biden for not sending more aid to help fight against Russia, which Trump has stopped. This guy, he's mentally ill. I don't know, what's going on with this guy?
I mean, you have to...
mentally disturbed in some way.
He clearly wants his Nobel Peace Prize, and he thinks that he can bring together, that he can get it by having, forcing Zelensky to sign some type of an agreement. But then you'll get the Macrons and the leaders of the EU coming in England coming to Washington and explaining how bad this would be. And Trump at times seems to get that. At times Trump seems to say that we cannot allow Ukraine to basically be Belarus. Right? That is not going to be good for the world if we just get another client state that Putin has taken over, like he's taken over Belarus. So sometimes he will come back to geopolitical senses and say, no, we can't allow this to happen.
But then he'll say something completely opposite.
Exactly. And he could go a lot harsher on Putin. I mean, the Senate. The Senate is sitting on
sanctions and heaven knows what else he could do.
Everything else.
The Senate is sitting
not inviting him to a red carpet ceremony,
patting his hand, autographing photographs of him. I mean,
there's a number of things he could do.
The basics.
And he started a bit, right? I mean, and you look at the sanctions he's put or the tariffs he's putting on India for buying Russian oil.
Right.
He could be doing a lot more from the U.S. economy. He could be doing a lot more getting China. You really want to go on to get China to stop purchasing all of this Russian oil and Russian equipment. So Trump could go a lot harder. But what does he say? Well, we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks. And then we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks. So we're now on another 2-week period, which we know isn't going to be any different than the last 2-week period. And if this happens as it's going and Putin plays out for time, Ukraine cannot hold out forever getting bombed with all of these people getting killed.
Exactly that point on playing for time. Ian says, and do keep your comments coming, Putin, like Xi Jinping, is playing the long game, while Trump, of course, is gone in less than 4 years. What do you think of that?
Well, it's as one reporter who I really follow, an expert in Washington, says, this is the meat grinder. I mean, Putin will fill up that meat grinder with Russian bodies, and the Ukrainians...
Or North Korean bodies.
Or whatever he has to.
Right.
And the Ukrainians can't do that, and at some point, the meat grinder just stops. And that's what Putin is waiting for, this meat grinder of death in Ukraine that is going on with and we'll segue into the North Koreans in a moment, North Koreans and Russians and Ukrainians. And at some point, he will win the meat grinder game because he has no limit on the amount of people he's willing to see die.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Exhale there for a second. Let's move on. All right. Sadly, we're not going to get to a story that's any more fun, in fact, less fun, and that is we have Israeli officials now saying Gaza City will be razed if Hamas does not agree to the terms. That comes from an Israeli minister.
And disarm and release all the hostages.
Disarm, release the hostages, which of course everybody wants. There's no challenge on that. This comes at the very same time that the United Nations has officially declared that famine is happening in Gaza City. The UN-backed food agency has come. So, Steve, again, more uncertainty around the future, the present and future of Gaza. But there is more international pressure as well. I don't know if that's doing any good, but there we go.
I mean, this is awful a situation as you've seen in the world in some time, having 2 million people suffering from severe hunger. The UN saying a quarter of those 2 million in Gaza are facing starvation, and yet the United States needs to. There is international pressure. You see it coming from France. You see it coming from Germany. You see it coming from the UK. You see it coming from the Australia. There's only one country that can stop this right now, and that's the United States. And Trump is doing nothing on this right now. And so that may be one of the reasons why he's thinking he's at the bottom of the totem pole. When it comes to getting into heaven, the United States has to step in. You see, Israeli civil society really starting to push back, but there's not enough pressure there within Israel and the way the Israel government is formed, and the right wing in Israel, the ultra hard right wing, has way too much influence, and Netanyahu's trying to stay out of prison. And you put all of this together without pressure from the United States, I don't see this coming to an end.
No, I mean, the Israelis have said if Hamas disarms and if Hamas releases the hostages, they will stop. But it's worth quoting the Defense Minister Katz. Did you see his quotes? This is an exact quote. Soon the gates of hell will be open upon the heads of Hamas murderers and rapists in Gaza until they agree to Israel's conditions for ending the war. These are not the words of peace, Steve, or appeasement, are they? This is not ending.
Or just common sense.
Oh, common sense, yeah.
I mean, when you look at the situation
These are
in
not
Gaza,
conciliatory words.
No, and this is why the United States should be stepping in, leading a global coalition on this, saying, Israel, you have accomplished what you needed to accomplish. You have to make sure, as Ukraine needs to be safe and secure in its borders, Israel needs to be safe and secure in its borders. You've been able to do that now after that, all the murders and you could argue genocidal attacks against Israel on October 7th a few years ago. But this has got to stop now. And now you have gotten where you need to get, and let's get as Glenn said, we've got to get the hostages out, of Gaza. But starvation of 500,000 people, famine being faced by 2 million people, and severe hunger, that should not be allowed to happen.
And 62,000 plus already dead.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go into a fun story now. North Korea has got missiles that it could hit Asia and North America with. Now, North Korea has a secret missile base that, according to a new report, says a potential nuclear threat to the U.S. Obviously, that would include any country in this region as well. It is on just 27 kilometers, about 17 miles from the Chinese border. It's believed to store up to 9 nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missiles, as well as mobile launchers. This comes from the Washington think tank, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, a very reputable organization. So, the site is one of estimated 15 to 20 ballistic missile bases and warhead storage facilities that North Korea has never declared. This has been this North Korea story to me is extremely interesting because while everybody is worried, and rightly so, about everything else happening in the world, whether it's in Washington or in Ukraine or in the Middle East, North Korea is still one of the biggest threats to this region, and nobody is talking about it. Nobody's doing anything about it. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-un is just quietly building his programs.
We're talking about it.
Well, I mean, but like when is somebody
we're talking about
when is somebody that can actually do something about it going to do something about it?
Well, this was that phrase we talked about for a few years now in the International News Review, polycrisis. Governments can maybe you can handle one crisis, maybe you can handle two. You can't handle multiple crises, and we are in a polycrisis era on geopolitics. This is the third one we're talking about now. We haven't even started about U.S.-China, which will weigh into this, in addition to the climate crisis, and God knows what's going to happen with AI. So the governments can't handle this. The governments are not focusing on this. And what's frightening, in a way, what North Korea is doing here now, and obviously these are very intelligent people, the North Koreans, so they're building these missile bases literally on the China border. because now if you are going to take out a missile base, and this is about 17 miles or so from the China border, you have the potential to bring China into the conflict. So now the North Koreans are trying to violate every UN sanction that's against them on accessing materials and weapons, and bringing in these, these missiles that can bring in so many others, and trying to leverage the political risk and uncertainty of what would happen if you attack them when they're so close to China. So they're taking this to even another level, because now you can bring in a China-U.S. conflict into the North Korea mess.
Smart from their perspective, isn't it?
These are smart, evil people.
Well, riddle me this, Steve. This is a geopolitical conundrum I cannot get my head around. So North Korea feels emboldened now. Why? Because it's cooperating with Russia. It's sending troops to the front line for the Russian war, hoping for, in return, that Moscow will boost Pyongyang's technologies and supply lines. In other words, Moscow will help build the weapons that are potentially a threat to the US. The same US that is sitting down and shaking hands and doing deals with Putin, the man who is providing the technologies to North Korea that could be launched against the US. How does that even work?
Well, it's exactly how it works. I mean, that's
you've said it. You've said exactly how it works. Yeah. Congratulations.
That's exactly how it works, and it shows when you have, when you allow Russia and Putin to invade other countries, to not take the steps that you need to take, to let this drag on for years, and then that crisis branches out into other areas. You have energy issues on that crisis. You have famine and food issues on that crisis. And now you are going to be helping North Korea. Now you're taking your eye off the ball, because your eye's on Kyiv and Moscow and not on Pyongyang. And then now Russia and North Korea are coming together. Russia's trying to tie this with China. U.S.-China relations are getting worse. China and India are getting together because of what the U.S. is doing to India, because it's trying to put a stop on Russia, and all China and Trump cares about is tariffs. This is the poly crisis, and we are not able to deal with it.
I don't want to be completely down on Mr. Trump, so let's finish on a positive. While Glenn switches off his phone. The whole world, but particularly Singapore. Singaporeans have a dream. Do you know this? And their dream is to get their hands on the World Cup. Very few people get to do it, and yet Mr. Trump has managed to do just that, Steve. How did he do it?
Very simple. He is the president of the United States, and according to the head of FIFA, if you are the president of a country, you are a winner by definition. And only winners, as you know, Neil, much better than I, get to hold the World Cup. And because Trump is a winner, and because Trump is hosting, or the United States is hosting the World Cup, the FIFA is doing anything it can possibly to do to get into Trump's good graces. It's giving him front row tickets for the finals, and it is letting him hold the World Cup, which is a beautiful piece of gold.
I must have missed that when he played for the LA Galaxy.
Yes.
I know Beckham was there, and a few others were there.
You definitely missed it.
I must have missed Trump playing up front, Yes, so Trump gets to hold the World Cup.
Crazy stuff.
And look, and that is basically the way you have learned to treat Donald Trump. Tim, as I was about to say, Tim Apple, which is what Donald Trump calls Tim Cook.
Tim Cook,
right?
Yeah.
Tim Apple gives Donald Trump a 24-carat base upon which he can keep in the Oval Office, and so. What does the president of FIFA, Infantino, do? He one-ups him. Well, if Tim Cook's going to give him some piece of gold, I'm going to give him what you could argue is the most famous golden trophy in the history of the world, and I'm going to let Trump hold it, and hopefully he won't drop it, which he came close to doing if you watch the video. So this is how you deal with Donald Trump, because if you don't deal with him that way, what's he going to do? He's going to take 10% of your company like he did with Intel, or he's going to send the FBI to your home like he did to John Bolton, today.
Yeah. Hey, okay. Fun segment today, guys. Really good.
You're the one.
Enjoyable.
You know what? We have our little WhatsApp chat group, and Glenn says, here's our 3 stories for today. Let's talk about famine. Let's talk about nuclear annihilation. And let's talk about getting Ukraine wiped off the map. Wait, Glenn, really?
I picked the World Cup.
This is what you've got for us?
It's the world we're living in, folks. Sorry, I wish it was a nicer one, but it's not. Okay, hey, thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it. We will see you next week.
See you next week.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.